How's it going, y'all? This is McFrostyBoy, and today we're bringing you the first installment in our Team Theory and Fundamentals segment, where we'll cover simple teamwork concepts that you can implement in your game today. If you want more tips on how to improve, make sure to check out the rest of the videos on my channel, which are full of easy examples that break down the key factors to getting better in Apex Legends. Okay. So, we've all been there. You're winning a fight, you're living the dream, you're literally 1v3ing a squad all on your own. You knock two of them, and there's literally only one enemy remaining, and they're one shot. You look up, your teammates are literally off in a completely different country, doing something else, and are extremely slow to push. By the time they get over there, one of the enemies has revived, and the other one started healing, and they show up, and they somehow miraculously lose that extremely advantaged fight. And you're sitting there, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my god. If I had known that these players sucked, I wouldn't have played so riskily and tried to single-handedly take on an entire squad. I'm in a huge amount of trouble right now. Excuse me. Chill, it's not that serious. Uh-oh. That's not armor. Where's this guy? I'm kind of being the bad teammate right now. Yeah, I'm not going to make a miracle happen with that little margin of error to work with. So today, we're going to give you some tips on how to work with inconsistent teammates that maybe don't want to talk to you, and how to know when your teammates are going to suck and not help and leave you sitting there one shot, or with with one enemy one shot. So there are a couple of places where you're going to want to pay attention. The obvious one is before you even start fighting, right? So before you start fighting, you can already start engaging your teammates' relative skill level, and what they're going to attempt to do once you start fighting, right? So some key factors to pay attention to are loadouts. And so if you look down and you see your teammates got some sort of a shotgun, right, or a sniper rifle, those are two weapons that have very extreme effects on the way people play. People with shotguns, of course, are going to try and push and be at super close range, and people with sniper rifles are going to be more prone to stay at longer ranges. And so, yeah, let's just do this. I'd have to probably fight on my own against these squads now. I need something that's got a really fast time to kill. So the first thing you can pay attention to loadout on that same, on a similar sort of concept, I guess, concept. Are legend selections. So if you're paying it, if you take a look at the legends that your teammates are playing, that also has an influence on the way that they're going to play. A Wraith is going to play the game completely differently from a Caustic. You're gonna have different priorities, different sorts of situations they'll prefer, different situations where they will opt to push or play aggressively, or where they play more passively and aren't going to be there to help you. Just on paper, right? A Caustic is going to want to play buildings, is probably going to be a little bit more reluctant to give up cover, and whereas a Wraith is going to be a little more courageous, going to try and probe positions, and is probably going to be with you if you try and push. They might also be extremely rude and toxic and try and boss you around. I don't know. I don't know any Wraith mains, personally. Yep, definitely not one myself. The other thing that you like I said, you want to be watching out for is well, how much do your teammates suck? So you've got information now, right off the drop, of sort of what your teammates are going to be going for, and now you need to know if they're going to actually be effective at it, right? One of the easiest ways to tell if your teammates are going to be effective and going to be helpful when they're fighting is the speed at which they loot. So if your teammates are extremely slow looting and are not efficient with the way that they're spending their time, that's a really basic skill that a player of any reasonable skill level is just gonna have down because they've just done it so many darn times. And so if your teammates are like literally just like standing still and taking forever to loot and like, you know, moseying through like an area, then you can sort of like just guess already that their ability to be effective with their time is not great. And players that are not effective with their time, at least in my mind, are players that don't have a good understanding of the game itself and are less likely to be people that I'm going to rely on to try and like bail me out. The other thing that you can like watch for is like movement, and so like and like pathing before fighting. And so if like you see your teammates and like they're just moving very inefficiently and taking like really like silly paths through like low ground and stuff like that through the open, instead of like, you know, at least paying a little bit of attention to like major pieces of cover and what all, then you can know that, you know, their conceptual understanding of like how to use cover and all that is rather on the low side. This is extremely boring. So that's everything you can gather before the first fight. So what happens next is, well, you have that first fight, and I'm not going to fly directly into a single entire squad. Oh, they're coming towards me. Just gonna pull them in these buildings. Got a better chance in here. See if they chase and get greedy. Yeah, they do.
Attention. Losing kill leader. Grenade.
I was asking for a bit much for me, not gonna lie. So the next question you're going to want to answer, questions like you're going to want to answer, they're the same as like before, it's just like in a different context, right? So in your first fight, again, you're just trying to answer the questions: do your teammates suck? And how badly do they suck? And what are they trying to do? So things that you can watch for when your teammates are fighting in that first fight, like, you know, if you have got a little bit of attention to spare, are going to be things like cover use and like different decisions that they make in terms of like the cover that they use. And so if your teammates make really awful use of cover, path out through the open, and just generally expose themselves a lot to the enemy, then you know that in all likelihood they're probably not very good at the game, because players that don't make good use of cover, generally speaking, don't understand how the game works. That's the first thing you can watch for. Additionally, like approach angles, so like when they start to approach an enemy to fight them and like are approaching like pieces of cover, right? Like what kinds of like approach angles are they taking? Are they taking angles that take them through cover and through locations like where they're not as exposed to the enemy, or do they take really risky? Like, so like, you know, if they were like pathing like across like from here to there and they had to attack over there, right? Like, do they do this, right? And like run like straight across like this and like not use any of the cover, right? Or start back over here, right? Do they do something more along the lines like this, right? Where they like dip down into cover here, peek, maybe actually peek this side, right? And then like go around, go here, peek in through here, right? Step back out, like go here, check to like climb and check, right? Step into cover here, and then like finally like reach here, right? So that's like that would be like a much safer like line of approach, actually very difficult to defend against also, if the enemy takes their eyes off you for a second, because you're frequently changing like the line of attack for the enemy, and so making it much more challenging for them to actually even keep track of you and like communicate to their teammates where you are. So like that's like just like, again, like a sort of like basic thing that, you know, over time you just get better and better at. Did I pick up the battery that was in here? No, because I was focusing on the example. So that's like another thing you can watch for, right? It is like just like the general approach angles that your teammates take. And so like if they're taking just like really poor and like deficient like approach angles, then you can probably assume that they're not going to be a whole lot of help, or at least like you shouldn't be like leaning into them expecting like carry of the year here, right? What's in the crafter? I want a bolt. I don't want to craft right now. Take too long. Oh, shame. So those are kind of things that you can like watch for in terms of like determining like teammate level of proficiency in that first fight. Other things you can watch for are like, are like just straight up like, are they winning gunfights, right? So it's like if you see your teammate like run into a building and suddenly 3 people are dead, right? Then you probably can assume that your teammate knows what they're doing. If you see your teammate engage a single opponent, right, in an advantaged engagement and they lose still, then you can probably assume that they are not as skilled, right? I mean, it seems pretty obvious. Oh, that's not great.
You like cutting it close, huh? I take that. Arc star out.
Oh, what? That was definitely a surprise to me. The last thing that you can be watching for from your teammate are the ranges that they're standing at and where they start to fire from, right? So again, super obvious, but it's harder to tell like if like when they've got like a Mastiff or a sniper rifle, but it's harder to tell when you see that they're holding like a light weapon, right? That light weapon might be a scout or it might be an R99. There's a huge variance in sort of the potential ranges that player is going to want to engage from. So that's like an additional thing you can watch out for, or the ranges where they start to shoot from. And those are things you can watch in the first fight. Those are all things that kind of cue you into the general play style of your teammates, so that you can start to like make more accurate anticipations of what they'll probably do next. You might be wrong, but that's okay. Time to shoot swap, I guess. She going back in? Apparently cannot hit anything with this.
Give me a thank you.
Kill leader. Watch your 6. Target spotted.
So far, for example, this Bangalore right is... Oops! Whatever.
I'm taking shots. Need to recharge my shield.
Right, he's like clearly trying to like get into closer ranges, so they're definitely like not like running a sniper rifle like this person. That's a Mastiff.
Void running.
I'm not done yet.
Better make it work. Okay, so we've like gotten all like that we can about the general play style to expect from our teammates from our first fight, and so now like we're moving on to the rest of the game. So things that you can do that will sort of like help you, even though your teammates aren't going to be communicating with you, like right, they don't like to use their comms or whatever.
Let's make a choice. Land here.
Or you can keep an eye on like what they're trying to do. And so generally speaking, if you like actually just like watch like where enemies are running and like who they're trying to shoot at and all that, and how much HP they have, all those sorts of things, then you can like sort of start to take and like put that together like with like what you know about their play style and preferred like sort of engagements they like to take. You can start to put together a picture of what you think they're probably going to do. So knowing what your teammates are probably trying to do, right? Like if you're right, great, and if you're wrong, I mean like you're still in the same boat that you were before, right? which is that you made an assumption about what they were going to do and you were wrong. There's a gun. So that's like the first thing I feel like that will really help you. Like once you've sort of like gotten through that first fight and made sort of like a assessment of how good you think your teammates are. And like what they can be relied on for. Oh wow, that's super unfortunate that I just dropped that sniper stock. Not like particularly inclined to go back for it because I'm like really not planning on using them for very long. I may regret this though.
First blood. Tastes like victory.
So the next thing that you can sort of watch out for are like what your teammates can and can't see. So, you know, naturally your teammates are going to be able to do some things and not others. And so having an awareness of like what they can't see, right, is like, or what they are aware of and what they aren't aware of, sort of helps you put together an idea of like what you can expect them to do. So if an enemy like, and like to compensate for them not like having like super great comms. That's just gambling and asking for trouble. Oh, I suppose that works. You. So by keeping an eye on your teammates' backs, you know, like, gonna be running, more likely I'll be running a scout. This is gonna suck. Got a lot of healing.
Healing up. Eyes are open though.
Oh, there's some good.
$45 rings close.
Recharging shields.
Recharging my shields.
So by like watching your teammates' backs, then and like paying more attention to what they're doing, you're like not as reliant on the fact that they are not communicating to you, right? Like you're like actually probably going to be able to see what's going to happen to them and what they're going to try to do like before them. You'll see it first, which is a huge advantage. And like a really good quality as just like a player in general to have, which is just team awareness.
Medkit here. Syringe here.
Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. That's all I've got. Like when it comes to sort of dealing with teammates that aren't communicating, that aren't doing the good teammate thing, right? They're not like using pings and all that sort of stuff. How you sort of like offset that, and so avoid taking risks on their behalf, or independently of them, expecting them to be able to back you up.
Care package coming in.
So like just I guess to summarize, like the basic things that you're like watching for are level of play, you know, how much do they suck, and then what are they trying to do while they're fighting? What's their playstyle like based on the character and how many times they run in circles like I just did, loadout, etc. And then situationally, sort of like the things that are going to be of concern to them. Like if they're broken, right, they're going to probably try and back up to heal. And even though they're not going to communicate to you that they're doing a battery, which is something you should communicate to your teammates, you know, you can just intuit that that's what's going to happen. So that's that.
Watch for them.
I'm going to focus now on actually shooting accurately and applying the things that I did while I'm training.